So for people watching right now, I would venture to guess there are a lot of people who have potentially are in a narcissistic relationship right now, or maybe they've just gotten out of one, and might want to know, like, how can they avoid repeating the cycle? I know a lot of people that have had multiple relationships, a string of relationships, you know, that dating the same person over and over again experience. So how does one break that cycle?
You know, that can be difficult. And I do see that as well. I see where the person sort of seems to date the same person over and over and they go, oh my goodness, another narcissist. But, you know, just like everybody else, narcissists out there looking for relationships. And they are boundary testers, you know, and so sometimes they will throw out some baits to see if you are an empathic person. Now, some of them don't really even care what kind of person you are at all. They'll just date whoever will date them because they're just interested in attention, adulation, and so forth. But the people who unfortunately tends to keep them are people who are very just loving and empathic people, because these are people who tend to forgive and who are loving and who can see the pain that the narcissist may have been through. And some of them truly have been through some pain, but that pain that they've been through is no excuse at all, ever, for them to do the violations and engage in the violations that they engage in. So we do see the repeat happening quite a bit with the population of people who are very empathic and sensitive individuals, because the narcissist knows that they can just get away with their violations again and again and again. And they may have to offer a little bit of a superficial sorry or come back and I'll be different. And that person, not because they're gullible, but because they have compassion for people. And they know what it's like to have been in pain and not want to be that way. They may forgive that person. Because when the neural pathways of empathy are ignited, that's when we're in the biggest state of forgiveness of somebody, even somebody who's hurt us. And so hence it'll be the empathic person or the sensitive person who will find themselves again and again and again in a relationship like this. They're not the only ones, but they tend to be the main ones.
So, right, you mentioned it being like a neuro pathway for compassion, for empathy. So obviously these are things that I would think most people want to have, because that makes us like who we are, and amazing, sensitive, empathic people. But how, like from a neuroscience perspective, how does one like not turn it off, but like how do you shift that so that you're not like attracting that same thing over and over again?
You cannot shift, you can't turn it off. It's automatic. So if you're looking for ways to turn off your empathy, if you are an empathic, sensitive, loving person, that's not going to happen. That's no more than asking the psychopath, turn on your deep love and compassion for humankind. They don't have the capacity to do that, no more than it. So an empath has no capacity to turn off being a compassionate person. So they will have to do things that will protect that empathy, hence boundaries. They may have to literally set a set of rules for themselves, and say to themselves before that person comes back around them, that these are a set of things that if I see these things, I can't be involved with that person. That person will find someone for them, but it cannot be me. So that person, they will have to put boundaries in place. They will have to put rules in place, whatever it takes to protect that empathy, because they will not be able to turn that empathy off. And this is another reason why no contact, in my opinion, is really, really important. No contact obviously protects you from the abuse that they do towards you, but it also protects you from getting your empathy ignited. Because many times a psychopath or a narcissist will come back into your life because they sweet talked you in a certain way, you know, and boom, there they are again. You think, how do I right back up with this person again? You know, here we are trying again, and he's doing the exact same thing that he did last time, you know. And so that's because that person ignited your empathy, and you say, okay, we'll see. So yeah, they have to protect that in some way. And we probably were never taught to do that. I'm one of those people too, the empathic person, and I was never taught that is a very special trait, set of traits, compassion, that really needs to be guarded from some people. Some people do not deserve it. And if I give it to that person, I literally open myself up to being violated. And so now that I know that, I'm very, very conscientious and aware in certain interactions that I have.
So like you mentioned, yeah, boundaries, right? Being like this obviously very essential thing for, I think, anybody in any relationship, just to be able to maintain their own personal self and, you know, personal traits and all that kind of stuff. Like, do you have any examples for people? I guess I'm thinking of, right, people who are in these relationships, like what would be some examples of like boundaries they would set that would protect that like empathy?
While they are currently in the relationship.
Sure.
So for people who are in the relationship, you know, this is where psychopathy and narcissistic behaviors, knowing about them from an educational standpoint is really important, because if you know the style of your particular narcissist or psychopath, you will have to be very cognizant of how you not play those symptoms, but control those symptoms. And I never, ever put it on the survivor to control anything. However, you're hopefully using this to back away from the relationship, you know. Mm-hmm. So you knowing that your partner has certain symptoms. For example, if your narcissist is more on the end of, they're just very attention soaking and talkative and me, and they're highly selfish, they're just more like showboaty. They're less dangerous, believe it or not, than somebody at the other end of the spectrum who is looking to feed off of your pain, like the psychopath. They are looking for control and power, and in order to control and implement power, that means you're going to get hurt automatically. Like nobody lives successfully under those conditions. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. So knowing the symptoms of your mate will help you figure out the types of boundaries that you're implementing. For example, you will not sort of put your foot down with the psychopath. You would put yourself in danger to do that. Whereas you may be able to do that with the person who's on the other end of the spectrum, which is the narcissist. And for those of you who are not aware of the spectrum I'm speaking of, let me kind of orient you guys really fast. So we have this long spectrum that I feel is a narcissistic personality spectrum. We have the narcissistic personality over here. Then it sort of segues all the way down into the more severe symptoms. At some point, narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder are going to blend. And now we have this sort of malignant narcissist. Some people call them the sociopath. Mm-hmm. So this is that group right here where they have both narcissistic personality disorder and a little bit of antisocial personality disorder. So this is your showboaty person, or he may be quiet or she may be quiet, but they're very callous and they're mean. They need attention from you to say, wow, you're so amazing, you're so powerful, you're so special. But they also want to feel powerful. So this is a really tough one to implement boundaries with. This is a person you need to be backing away from as much as you can. Then all the way at the other end, you have your psychopath. This is a person with no empathy. Every interaction with them is more of a game, it's transactional. They don't need anything emotionally from you at all, just your compliance and sort of serving them. And they will never be appreciative of it in any way. So these are definitely ones that you want to get away from. Implementing boundaries with them is a different set of boundaries. It's never saying no. It's more of what I've called a controlled kind of kindness, a kindness where you try to get them to do what you want and you do what you want, but you must be gentle and kind in it. Don't ever appear confrontational. Don't appear like you're trying to exert power, because that is actually one of their triggers. It ignites them to see someone trying to control them in any way. Matter of fact, narcissists is a little bit like that too, but not as bad as the psychopath. Mm-hmm. So for the person with them, implementing boundaries will really depend upon who you have in your home with you, who you have in front of you. Right. So yeah, this is where psychopathy education comes in handy, because you'll be able to see, okay, what traits are less dangerous than the others.